I'm calling the meeting to order. And I would like to request, Carrie, since I think you only have it, I don't think Jeff has it, read the statement. I've been I taught for an hour and a half and started losing my voice day before yesterday. So I just want to preserve it. Could someone
Sure.
read that meeting statement?
I can do that as soon as I get it
Thank you.
up.
But we should, could we send a copy to Jeff so he'll have it in case he needs it?
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, this meeting is being conducted utilizing teleconference and electronic means consistent with state of California executive orders regarding the COVID-19 pandemic. Zoom and YouTube are being utilized for this meeting. In case of technical issues, meetings will be uploaded to the city website as soon as possible after this meeting. I will say, in fact, all videos are uploaded to the city website under the meeting date. We'll be conducting today's meeting using Zoom. Public Art Committee members and staff are participating from remote locations, practicing appropriate social distancing. Members of the public may view and listen to the meeting by use of Zoom, as noted on the city's website and the agenda for this meeting. Members of the public wishing to speak to the Public Art Committee may do so during public comment and may comment on agenda items during the discussion of each item and must be logged into Zoom. YouTube is a viewing only format. Anyone using abusive, vulgar, offensive, threatening, or harassing language, personal attacks of any kind, or offensive terms or disruption that target specific individuals or groups will be muted and removed from the meeting. Please do not abuse this new way to provide public comment.
Thank you. Thank you. And roll call. Robert?
Yes.
Lars?
Here.
Jeff?
Here.
Margie here, and Barbara is out for the month. Comments from the public. Oh, excuse me, approval of minutes. So we got the minutes for November and December. Any comments, corrections, otherwise?
And January, I believe, Maggie.
In January.
Yeah.
You get January? Sorry, you're right.
Yeah.
I see.
There's 3 of them
January.
there.
Sorry about that. Okay, and who will be taking minutes for this meeting?
So just a point of order, Margie, if you could ask for approval of those minutes,
Oh,
if
I'm
there's
sorry.
no corrections.
Too much coffee. Okay,
That's okay.
do we have a motion for approval of the minutes?
So moved.
Second,
I'll second.
all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, minutes are approved. Thank you, Carrie.
All right, thank you.
Okay, now, whose turn is it to take minutes? Anybody know? Who
I
did?
took the ones last time.
I think
Okay.
it's my turn.
Okay. We do that, Jeff?
Mhm.
Thank you, dear. Okay. Okay, thank you. Comments from the public regarding items not on the agenda. We have no other members from the public.
And we have not received any via email for this group.
Thank you. I'm just putting some notes here. Okay, statements of conflicts of interest. None. Regular agenda. A discussion by members of dream projects. This is my idea. And I just want to, if you've read the note, I just want to invite each member to think of what their dream project or projects could be for the PAC in the future. And so just that we can begin to make a list of these and see when the time is appropriate, what we might want to do. And so people can be thinking about what your dream is and what would be the steps to realizing it. Anybody have one they want to mention? Any dreams?
I'll start.
Yes, thank you, Robert.
Well, I would like to see a whole lot more muraling in town. And that would be a potentially public-private partnership with building owners, and I don't know what all work in polling the owners of buildings which might be suitable has been done in the past. But that's something I'd like to see happen.
Lovely. Okay, you might check in with Jen, who has and also David Gordon, who have been involved with some of that in the past. Lovely.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah, so Robert, on that, I don't know if I don't believe there's been a formal kind of inventory and outreach to building owners. I do know that Jen has been working with the owners of Art and Soul and has mentioned a couple other sort of locations in town, so she may have sort of a sense of some of those things. I think it's actually interesting, and we could certainly, once we're done with this discussion, if you all want to discuss whether or not to put on future agenda items to discuss, well, how could we go ahead and partner with, what would that look like?
Just to
Well,
get
I
a-
know Jen well, but I don't have her contact information. Margie, if you could send me that, I will get in
Yes.
touch with her and begin that conversation.
Okay, great. Yeah. And I would just like today to get a list, and then we'll think about and then talk again about what we might want to put on the agenda going forward. And I just want to say too, when you talk to Jen, one of the things that I know she has encountered is she had a whole plan and it was going along, and then there was the property was sold and the new owner didn't let it go through. So that's something that does come up. Okay, thank you. Dream 2?
Yeah, I was going to mention, these are not new concepts whatsoever, but they are dreams for me. And it's actually twofold, but somewhat related. The first one is trying to see follow through to get a major piece of art installed at what is now called Spooner Park. I'm really passionate about that. I know it has a lot of challenges, but I feel like over time, those are challenges that could be resolved. I just think it's a very prominent location, and with appropriate clearing, a part of the southern tip of that space, which would mean, of course, as we've discussed, moving some of those Solar Dragon panels or pedestals, etc. I just think it would be a fantastic site, particularly if it was located a little around towards Maine, South Maine, a little bit more, so that people would see it coming from both directions more. And then the other part of the dream for me is, as I've already mentioned before, is conducting an inventory of potential sites, both public and private, within the city limits that haven't already been included in that, so that we have a document that we can refer to.
Thank you. Yeah, it could be something we've been mentioned before, but I just, what's dear to your heart? What would you really love to, and you would want to put at least put some energy, a fair amount of energy into realizing over time, because things take time, as we see.
Can I ask Jeff a question about that?
Yeah.
Has anybody talked to Patrick Amio to see whether people have approached him wanting something that he hasn't chosen to do, but offering private property for placement of a sculpture?
Anyone? No, he's my back neighbor, but I've not asked him that. And perhaps Jeff
Well,
could do that.
He
Or
might
so-
well
or
have
he
his
might work-
finger on the pulse of private locations.
Yeah. Yeah, well, he's the whole street of.
I know.
Okay, good. So I would suggest, Jeff, to continue your research into what would make that workable, and whoever you need to talk to, and finding out what specifically needs to be settled.
Mhm.
To do that, that's a great welcome to Sebastopol place. It's not pedestrian friendly at all. We just went by the other day and we said, So, but it's a great welcome to Sebastopol place.
It might be, Jeff, it might be worth talking to a solar consultant to understand, what the sort of the capacity of that system is. It might be that it's been around for a few years. Panels get better and better. Like maybe it'll need an upgrade anyway at some point, or you could replace, 3 for 1 or something like that. Like there may be a logistical kind of way to move some of those panels and not impact the system overall.
Do you think more than the southmost one needs to be removed in order to create the space envisioned for a sculpture there?
Yeah, I think the signage definitely needs to be
The
modified.
the
or
signage
relocated,
too.
as well as potentially some tree work,
Yes,
which is a tough one because I'm not saying removal necessarily, but I know that we have a lot of very strong environmental people here in Sebastopol and outside the city limits as well. And then, as I mentioned, the movement of a few of those pedestals to just clear some space so that piece doesn't feel like it's going to be crowded, and give it whatever due justice it would deserve.
that's what I'm asking. You think more than one of the solar pedestals needs to be removed?
I do. Yeah, I'm thinking maybe 2, maybe even 3 at the most.
Well, I think what Lars is suggesting is a great idea, that the funding for the project would include solar panels with higher capacity to
Right.
replace some of the ones that are there, so that the removal of a couple of the pedestals doesn't impact the total wattage generated.
Okay, so that's great. So I'm thinking as much as possible, if you can make a list and have it ready to share with the committee on the steps needed and the information you've gotten so far and ideas, and maybe who you might want to work with you on a subcommittee on that. Maybe we can just get the subcommittees going, even though we may not, as way of rolling forward with your dream project. Great. Lars, you have something?
Yeah, the one I was thinking of is trying to think of public art in a bigger sense of engaging with the community in more direct action, so to speak. And the idea I came up with is like a critical mass bike ride that happens once a month, or it happens quarterly, but it could be something that's sort of festive and art focused. And there's one every week in Santa Rosa known as Taco Tuesday, and people decorate their bikes, and there's music and there's lights. And I just think, like, thinking of kind of, we have this great bike lane in town, and how many people actually ride on that bike lane. I think it's not that many. But so to bring awareness to that, and to bring awareness, like even collaborate with the climate committee or other groups, and just trying to think of some sort of more direct action kind of idea, bringing art into not just a piece that gets commissioned and sits there, but it's something that we actually kind of can do more often, almost.
Nice. Sarah Gurney had the art walk on a regular she would do. That's one thing.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
Bike is something, I think one of the reasons that's so successful is because it's something that people already do, and it's just harnessing that in a particular way.
Yeah, and I think it would, but I think there are people who, families or certain people who are scared to ride on that bike lane, probably because of the traffic. And so if you create a day, even if it's once a year or it's quarterly or something, where it's, and even the police can escort. I mean, when Curtis first happened in San Francisco, and I rode it for years, it had a police escort through the city. and it was amazing. You just had this sense of freedom of riding and not worrying about the traffic, and so I think of the Fool's Parade too in Occidental. Like there's a really lively, very artistic focused, event, like sort of a spirit of that, and so that's my thought.
Okay. So again, I would suggest if at some point, select one or two specific actions, events,
Mhm.
and kind of what it would take to do it and how it would tie into public art.
Uh-huh.
Great. Okay, and for me, I had one idea and I wrote it down and then I lost it, but I have another idea that I know I didn't forget, which is, let's say in front of the senior center, this is not what it would look like, but in front of the senior center, in the walkway, there's tiles with people's names on them. So, but I was also inspired by what Patrick said, Patrick Slater, at the reception for the library sculpture. And he talked about some city he was in where there was poems in cement on the sidewalks. And so I was thinking kind of something using those and maybe raising funds for more public art projects by having people purchase a tile, not looking like the ones that are on the senior center walk necessarily, but more, but that would have a line of poetry or just a word, and that's all. And that perhaps those could be located, and I haven't found where exactly, but maybe someone will have a better idea than I, somewhere around the community sculpture garden. So there'd be a paved area of tiles to walk with these tiles. That
Margie, do you see that as fundraising for something, or how do you envision that?
I envision it as that's one element of it, would be fundraising for future other public art projects.
Well, I have a meeting at 1 with the new executive director at the Art Center to talk about their financial problems.
Yes.
And the location you suggest is, of course, there.
Yes.
And just as it was done in Grayton and stuff, I mean, that's potentially a good fundraising mechanism. And I wonder how you feel about me suggesting that to them, and maybe something we could cooperate in. But the Art Center is in desperate financial situation. And I will resist the temptation to be uncharitable about how it got that way. But they need all the help they can get.
Yeah, I think that's a good idea. I would like, from my perspective, I would like the PAC to be involved in that. And in terms of finances, we can discuss whether we think it should all go to the Art Center or some of it could go to increasing our fund. And that fundraising is one element. To me, the other element is art and involvement of the community. Art in the sense that, you have a line from a poem, or even a word, or maybe an image, and that's a square. And this, so that has, I guess, 3 elements: fundraising, art, and community connections.
And of course, the Art Center sponsors the Sonoma County Poet Laureate, annually. So there's another tie-in there.
Yes.
And Larry Robinson is the guy who knows 1,000 poems and can recite from memory until everybody else falls asleep.
Okay, I would like, that's all great. I would just say one per person. Not more than one per person, one tile.
Right, well, you know, as a fundraiser, you say, well, a tile is $50 and what the
Someone could
tile
buy
is gonna
several.
say on it is words of the poem, not your name.
Yes, yes, and just
so-
not a whole poem necessarily. Just make it easy, very easy.
So it would be words in a poem so that the sidewalk that's paved with them is a poem. No?
Altogether.
Yeah.
Well, that's another image. It's a different image, but it's another one. Mine would be, you know, each tile of itself from a community member. Maybe if two wanted to get together or someone wanted to buy more than one. But anyway, I would say that'd be, from my perspective, great to open discussion with that. And who is the new director? I didn't hear.
No.
Her name is Sue Ellen. I don't have the last name in my head. She comes, I believe, from KPFK or KQED as a fund development person and is taking the role on a temporary basis while they try and get their financial ship righted and be able to go out and look for a permanent ED.
Mhm.
Uh-huh.
Okay, thank you.
You know, Catherine left and Una left at the same time, so
Yes.
things are tough over there.
So,
Yeah.
and we will email Barbara and ask her to send a written statement for her dream. And if we have time, maybe we can include that next meeting. Thank you.
So Margie, is your thought that we all develop these and sort of over what time period, or what's your longer term thinking about this?
I think, yes, that each person work on their dream and what it would take to realize it, and realize that it could take a while. As I'd love to, you know, the sculpture garden took 6 years. And that was from when people first picked up the idea. I had mentioned it earlier. Took the people a while on the different committee members and so on. So it takes a while. So I don't have a timeline in mind, but you might. And maybe the next time we discuss this, people will have specific concrete steps and you know, use one to start with, one dream, and some sense of timeline, and then get input from the committee. That's my idea.
I would be happy, Jeff, to work with you talking to the city about the technical aspects of those solar panels and what it would take to, you know, cost out, what it would take to replace some with higher capacity ones and make it possible to take some out and all that stuff.
Okay, thank you, Robert.
Could I have a second dream?
Sure. Yeah, I would just ultimately, I'd recommend that each person, that's my thought, is that each person narrow it down to one for now. But let's hear them all. I mean, let's hear.
Well, I just want to throw another one out.
Yes.
I would love and have had this thought for years to see the town have an art parade, which, you know, nominally would be art cars and bikes, if the bike people would deign to be on the same road with cars at the same time. I realize that's potentially problematic, but, you know, maybe semi-annual or biannual, if I got that wrong, every 2 years kind of thing, and a serious event. And I'm thinking that it might be worth having a conversation with perhaps Windsor, who also have made quite a commitment to art, to have a starting and an ending place in different cities and co-sponsorship.
It's great. And I think that goes, connects up with Lars's idea of action.
It does.
Maybe the two of you can mull about that realizing that dream. That'd be wonderful.
Yeah, not being a bike rider, I don't know what the politics of that side of concept are.
Okay, thank you. We do have other things on the agenda, but thanks so much. And it's just what I was hoping for. Come from what you're inspired by is lovely.
Barbara, do you want me to include this on the next agenda so that we can get Barbara's thoughts as well?
Yeah, let's put it on as a possibility for next agenda. Yes, we should hear from Barbara, and
Great.
let's see what as I say, this is more long-term, far range, but it could be more immediate. I don't have any set on that. But it's great to,
Great.
okay, thank you. So next, the third artwork commission. So Carrie, I sent you a document. Did you?
Yes, I do see it just now. Margie, just so you know, I have meetings most Wednesday mornings, so I was literally on a site visit at the Burnett Street parking lot until 10:28 this morning. But I can certainly put this up on the screen and forward it to you all.
Dear, I know you do so much. And
I'm just saying I would have forwarded. I'm just literally seeing it right now when you mention it.
yeah, no, it's okay. It's fine. So anyway, the document is the list that in October I sent out for the steps that I have come from the past in setting up, getting the art commission going.
Oh, okay.
And so the next thing would whether the council on the 7th approves the site, or if they have other questions, whatever, we will need our next step, which will be setting up a call. So you can look at this, and maybe if you can scroll down on that. Yeah, it's got a number of.
Right, and so in the middle of it, it's kind of putting
Yeah.
out the calls. This is the first part of it. Yeah.
So that's where we. And anyone is, welcome to add to this list.
Yeah, and so I can just talk for just the site coordination. I guess it's under the determined permits requirement side of things. I have reached out to regional parks. They had, as you saw in the staff report, Margie, to council, if you've looked at it, they had previously, the deputy director there had talked about potential art on regional park land before we started looking and even considering those sites. And it's sort of the quote from her is we're 100% behind that kind of an effort. That's, it is certainly enhances things. I did follow up with them with the specific site. And they're still absolutely open to it. There's kind of two steps. One is their park planning folks who I know and work with a lot on other stuff, like the Calder Creek Naturalization Project. We're going to review the site and see if there were any technical issues with it from their side. So that's kind of that part of that permanent analysis side of it. And then I'll be working with the other staff to bring it to their, once it's approved by council, to bring it to their Parks Commission. At a couple of different points in the process. And let me just actually see if I can find the email to her, because I can share with you what I had proposed as a slight modification of what Margie asked me to share on the screen.
I just had one comment on that checklist. Would it be pertinent to include up towards the top there, approval by city council? Or if that's there, I'm not seeing it at the moment.
Let's see.
I see it down in the middle. City council meets and votes on PAC's recommendation after a lot of work had already
Yeah.
been done.
No, you're right. It should be up there. Okay. Yeah.
Okay, so this is what I wanted to share with you, which is the what I sent to my regional partners. So I have highlighted in yellow, so this is kind of different because it is a shared site and not a city site, how we might be able to kind of modify that, which is, once council has said, yes, this is good, I'll work with park staff and the park commission, and that might be requesting the chair or someone from PAC to come to a park commission meeting, just to present the idea to them. I don't know about that yet. This is my suggestion to the park folks, but I just want to let you guys know. The publishing column logistics would remain the same as they had been on Margie's thing. And so some of this is copied over. We get the applications in. I believe Margie and Laura, as you were here for the last round, I think we had 25 to 30 proposals for the library wall. So there's a significant number of proposals that we got. So hopefully we, get those, both staff reviews and the public art committee reviews. Usually we do our staff review of the proposals to see if there are any health and safety concerns, maintenance concerns, that kind of stuff. In this case, we may include the park planners and folks to make sure that they're okay with it as well.
So do you
Have you guys?
that point that to review all applications before we select?
Well, so normally, like the building official, Dante, this from Public Works, and myself review all of the applications, or I'll review all of them. And if there are ones that I see as potential having issues with building or Public Works, I'll talk with them on it to see if they see that if they think there are issues there or not. So I try to do the initial identification. With the library wall, okay, this is going to be pretty heavy. It's 400-500 pounds for Michael McGinnis's. Is that going to be an issue in terms of having to anchor through to in the building? That's something I talked with both Dante and our building official about, so that you guys don't have to worry about your analysis and the questions about, well, is this going to be a building code issue or something? Is it going to be a traffic distraction and there's potential liability with that? If that's reviewed beforehand, not necessarily in excruciating detail like a permitting phase, but just reviewed beforehand by staff, we'll still present those to you, but we'll note those issues. That way you guys don't have to just evaluate without that information.
Thank you. Thank you.
So that makes sense to me. I don't think the park staff would need to be involved until we really go through them, right? If they're like, if we present 5 to the parks or 3 to the parks or something, we're not presenting 30 to the parks.
Okay. Yeah, that probably makes sense. I think, as city staff, we can probably figure out where there are potential concerns without involving them. That's a good point.
And Lars, would you envision doing that before letting the artists know they're finalists in case there's one that's too problematic?
Yeah, probably. Yeah, we should get. I guess we should get the parks okay on. Yeah, if we're down to 3 finalists or something, that might make sense.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, sounds good. Thank you. And I'm going to stop share and do a new share because I realized I'm modifying this real time. So, okay, so I'm include making sure park staff can review the finalists before before we finalize that list.
So I would like to get some progress on getting the call for this written up. So we have, we not necessarily completed, but you know, we have templates, and we have this list, and we have the comments that Carrie just made.
Right, and I can send via email this.
So how would folks like to proceed towards having a completed call that we can, when ready, send out to artists? Any comments?
Well, I know with the CSG, we looked over the call and had a discussion during a meeting to see if there was any edits or revisions to make to it.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if we're going to use the same call as a model. If we have a former CFA that is kind of a skeleton that we can start with.
Yes, we definitely have the calls from the template, and I think I created that. The general template and then a specific, what the specific call was like. Is there someone or someones who would like to take those and create an initial draft for this one?
I'm going to be busy with my dreams.
Does that mean you'll be sleeping?
Exactly.
As much as possible, Robert.
So, Lars, Robert?
I'm sorry, I do not have time to really do that in my schedule.
Robert,
What
about-
exactly is it that you want me to do?
well, how about, let's say, would you work with me on updating a draft of the call?
Sure.
Thank you.
I was
So-
just gonna add that, you know, once you take a look at the former CFA has been used,
Mhm.
maybe in a state where it can just be brought to the committee for finalizing, and, you know, in revising, there may not be very much to do with it other maybe than a few customized steps for this particular site.
I would think that would be the case.
Right, so what I'll do is I'll get those and send copies to Robert, see if he has, see what updates he would suggest. And he and I'll put it together and bring it to the group at our next meeting. How's that?
Okay, and Margie, do you have the final call from the Michael McGinnis? Because that's probably the one to use. I know the initial one for the NEDCON did not have a site and was
Okay.
definitely refined afterwards for the.
I should have it if I have.
Okay,
If I don't, you do, but I might find my copy more easily.
How
So
much
let-
of a timeline for this do we think we have?
Yes, so that's the next thing, is that we need to create a timeline. And that's part of what this list is about, is to create a timeline. You can see there's little lines next to each one. So when we think, you know, which should come first, second, third, but when. So we can think, well, if and hopefully the city council approves the site, then what would we do next and when and after that?
Well, we don't really have control of the county's approval of this. What's your sense, Kari?
so and that was the piece that I inserted into that draft, which I actually sent to everybody, but I think we should make sure that the regional parks, I mean, we can start developing the call, but I would recommend we not issue the call until we have secured the site in terms of regional parks for
Well,
obvious
absolutely.
reasons.
I just wonder how long you think that's going to take.
I'm not sure. I did work through, and it did take 2 or 3 months just because, you know, the responses back from the county and site visits and whatnot. It took maybe 3 months to get that all settled out for the community sculpture garden park. So that was the more simple licensing agreement with the art center and the county listed as additional insured, which was easy as a city sponsored project. In this, it would include the artist's insurance for whoever's selected would need to include that. So that's the licensing agreement is available if it's under a certain dollar threshold, which I think is either $20,000 or $30,000. Beyond that, it becomes a more complex lease or some other agreement. So there's a certain level that they can do at a staff level, and beyond that, it's higher up the food chain.
Well, I'm confused about your use of the word licensing. What license are you talking about?
So for the community sculpture garden, half of the sculptures are on the art center land.
I'm aware of that.
Which is Sonoma County. So I had to work out and they call it a licensing agreement. It's basically an agreement that we can have. We can utilize the land.
Permission to use their land. Okay.
If it's up to a certain threshold of dollar value and it's a minor improvement. So like there are places like the O'Reilly site has a trail that connects into it. Rather than going through an easement and encroachment permit and much more formal approval, they just gave them a licensing agreement, which was something that a staff could execute. And because it's an art commission, this commission may require more complex. I don't know yet. It may require a more complex agreement because of the value of the work.
Yeah, because it'll be
Community sculpture garden. I said, well, that's $5,000 for the materials and public works to pour the pads. That's and so that was below their threshold.
I'm wondering if the CFA used for Ned Kahn's piece would be more suitable for this one, because we're talking about two relatively freestanding pieces of art instead of one installed on a wall.
I don't think that was a requirement for the library one, though. Some of them were sculptures that stood in front of the library.
Yes.
Right. Yep.
Yeah. So, and this is a, specific, different location. And I think it would be over 30, because I think we're talking about 35,000. So we need to be specific, and maybe Carrie can email us points for that specific location, what would be required, which will be different. Each location has its own.
Right.
Okay.
Well, and I don't know if regional parks operates differently from the rest of the county. I know it's owned by the county, so they're probably similar. I don't know if I'm gonna have to go through the facilities group or if it's actually with the parks group, and it's
can you find that out?
That is that next step after council has approved it. I've got the preliminary sense from the parks folks that they're open to it, but that's where I need to we need to formalize it. And so, yes, Robert, to answer your question, it's probably 3 to 4 months to get that in place.
Okay, so Margie, we should just sort of start the timeline knowing that it's variable, but figuring on that as the beginning.
Yes. Time. So that would take us February, possibly into June. And just a little reminder that for that time and sometime this spring, which is coming close, we will need to discuss the second sculpture garden display. So I don't want to go into that at this meeting. I just want to put that in your mind that that's coming up. Okay. So anything else anybody thinks we need to do? So far we have, getting the council approval, getting the agreements made, and working on the draft for the call. Anything else that anyone thinks we need to get going at this point?
I don't think so.
Oh, okay. Oh, we did have a little discussion about a theme and whether we wanted to have a theme. So that's something else we can discuss, and that can be added into the call. But we don't have to decide that now. Just think about it. Okay. Thank you, everybody. Moving on. C, website updates. Carrie, do you want to say anything on that?
Sure. So the city is about to change the whole kind of has been working on a redesign of the entire website. And so that is, I believe, launching March 1st. I know that they're working on getting staff training, and we've gone through a beta of it and answered some questions. So it's kind of at the final stages. It seems like a good time to update some of the imagery and whatnot that is on the Public Art Committee website. And I also did receive some information from Sonali asking if some of the Upcycle Art Project images that they've collected could be up on that as well. And so that's sort of the introduction to that. And I do think there's definitely, some of the photography and some of the imagery that Margie is getting together for the council meeting on Tuesday may actually be useful for some of that, helping to write about art opportunities in the city or about the commission sculptures, getting the mobile app up on there, all those types of things are possibilities.
Thank you. So here's one idea I have, which is perhaps we could each write down what we would like to see on our PAC web page. And my idea was that it be more lively, fun, visually enjoyable, and informative, so that I'm not at all, not very familiar with creation of websites, although I have done some. But my idea was that one could click here for da-da-da-da. Click, and maybe an image next to the click here for, so if we were going, we have to discuss if we are going to include outside organizations projects, what our policy would be for that, what kind of, do we have any vetting on that, what organizations and so on, and that could be another place if we do want to do it. Click here for visual ideas, content ideas, and so on. I think it can be something, a go-to piece of art and function. And what are we doing now? What's up right now? Click here if you want to be an associate member. Click here to get information on this project and how to apply.
So on that note, is it possible to send us PAC members just the most recent PAC page?
It's
yes.
you just go online and you can see it.
Yeah, I realize that, but it would just be helpful to me anyway to just have it in an email that I can quickly go to. And
Absolutely. Yep.
Great. Yeah, it's not, I don't think it's very interesting. I mean, it's useful, it's functional.
Well, it's basically formatted the way all of our boards are. So like our planning commission, which isn't necessarily a visual thing. Right. The major projects for them are on, a separate place, because people don't necessarily go to the planning commission when they want to know what are the big projects going on in town. So it is more the things that the city is required to list, which is the members, the meetings, the membership, term expirations, those types of things, application forms for the committees. So it's more administrative in nature. However, I don't think it needs to be, and I think, making it a place where people can actually go to if they want to get involved. Later on the agenda, there's the question about private requests that come in. Is there information about what that process is like and how to deal with that kind of a thing?
Can you send us a list of the required elements? Or should we just figure whatever is on there is what's required at this point?
Yeah, I think what's on there is pretty sparse and it's more or less what's required.
Okay. I mean, I just have to say, I have done design and illustration. And when I think about what the landing page looks like, what our page looks like, how that could look, and do sketches. I'm encouraging people if they have visual ideas. And then, when you click to something, I'm assuming you can click to another page. What will that page look like? And they don't all have to look the same.
Well, that's partly the question of how this new website is being designed and laid out. It's not necessarily our play. We may not have the freedom to do all of those elements versus what's the content we want on there.
Carrie, do you know if
Right.
we would have the freedom to just, have someone, for information on this, click here and then go to another.
So we can do that where you create a subpage.
Yes.
Click here for, and maybe I'm trying to find the actual, I apologize, I didn't have this on here earlier. But I'm trying to find the link to the actual website, the new website, so you can kind of see the difference a little bit. There we go. Here we go. I think I found it. Oh, I don't know if I'll share this so you can see what I'm doing, but I'm not sure what exactly. This is the structure. Yeah, that's not the right one. Sorry.
Okay. Is there a way to find out if we can have subpages? I think that's
yes,
really
you should be able to do subpages.
Well, there you have it. I mean, maybe each member could be in charge of one of the subpages. Something, I don't know. These are ideas.
So I will say that from an administrative and kind of maintaining it, it is something that the planning technician will need to do, and they'll be trained on how to do that. It's not something that we're able to give members of the public access to because it does take training so that you're know what you're doing in there.
No. Each person on the committee. That's what
You're talking about just some developing content.
Yeah, design.
Each person responsible for content. Okay, cool.
Yeah, and visual design, graphic design.
I don't think that's our place. I think that the overall website's going to have a certain look, and each section can have a certain look, and each page is going to have a certain look, and it may not be as jazzy as we would like it to be if it was our personal website, but it's more giving the content. I think if we just have photos of the projects we've done in a nice resolution, and you click on it and it's a big photo, like that's going to be awesome. It's going to be a huge upgrade from what you see now there.
Right. Okay. So here is actually I found it. Sorry, it took me a second, but the Public Art Committee. So yes, you're
the
gonna have a
draft of
tab.
This is a draft of the new website.
This is the beta, yeah, this is the final draft, you can call it. There's a few things. So we can change, what's written here. Although, this stuff, how to contact, when the meetings are, who you are, that's required, but it can certainly be expanded and modified, to talk about what it is you're doing, your mission, your goals, that kind of stuff. We have I don't know why I'm listed as member, or the staff liaison. So, I guess that's a pretty simple thing. And related forums. However, the new website has, rather than the current website, which has that same stuff, but then it sort of droodles on into all of your meeting stuff back to 2015. The new website actually has just a separate tab for meetings. So it's there. And then it does have a special projects tab. So it already has a project tab set up for this kind of content that you might want. I believe, now this is showing some other stuff, but I believe this would actually be what you guys want it to be. So it could be the Ned Kahn, the Community Sculpture Garden, the Michael McGinnis, the Next Call, other projects that you're doing, other events you're doing, that kind of stuff.
Is there,
I will check and make sure that that is how it works, but that's my understanding on how this would work.
what I'm wondering is there flexibility in terms of layout and sequence? What appears where and when, and what the
So
layout is?
this general layout is set so that the city website has consistent look throughout it. I'm not sure what you mean by
I think
sequence.
this first paragraph there, like the problem with the current website too, is that the font is way too small. And we could do, like you started to say, Carrie, like just a statement at the top, the Public Art Committee mission is, like, really make that a, kind of a bolder statement.
Right.
Here's what we do, and then have some of the logistics you have to have, but then on the projects page, you really see the photographs of the work we've done.
Right.
And I think it should include some indication of how we're funded.
Yes, yes.
Mhm.
A lot of this I have already written up for the presentation on the 7th. So it's already, there is text and that to work from. And if you come to the meeting, you'll hear it. And we just places to come from. But my question is, in terms of layout, sequence, how flexible is that? I'd like Lars's idea about photos, and I think that there can be other things that make it a page more interesting and inviting and enjoyable.
So in terms of sequence, I would assume that you're going to have these 3 tabs.
Can we have more tabs, or is that it?
I think, I don't know. That's a good question.
Okay, thank you.
But do we need more than 3? I mean, I think you could, overview tells who we are and who's on the committee, and then I would put projects second, because that's more interesting than the meetings. And then just the sort of meetings as the record, right? Like, does it need
Right.
more than those 3 themes?
Okay, well, there could be a tab for all the data on the members. There could
Well,
be a tab.
Well, that's down here.
That's
So, I mean, we can probably add information to this if you wanted to put like a short bio or something on there. I guess you can.
Could you do a photo and a short bio? I mean, this is in the world of SEO, it's good for my personality in my business to be connected to this committee, right? And if it has a nice look to it when someone clicks on it, that's even better, right? More
Right.
information.
And perhaps each member could write a short statement in addition to bio.
What do you mean in addition to the bio? Why not just, you can create your own bio.
Something you might
could-
want to say about public art.
Right, that could be part of the bio. I think you could do that as one. You have a photo and a statement that includes sort of whatever you want in a way. Within reason, I suppose.
I see that as different than bio. Bio is, more factual.
Oh.
Maybe there could be an additional topic besides bio.
So I would say as long as it kind of fits in this area, if you're thinking a bio is 2 sentences and then there's a paragraph break and then a statement, and maybe it's a statement about your perspective on art
Mhm.
or something about art in the city.
Right.
That would actually be kind of nice.
Or a relevant poem, whatever you want for your little spot. That's my. Yeah, good. And then I don't know, we may, as we think about it, special projects, but there maybe we want another tab for, outside art organizations that's not under special projects. The special projects, maybe that's just the PAX projects.
Yeah, I
I
think
see.
so.
I'm just want to see how
And there's the projects that are not the PAC, like there was that one I saw that was was it Reese something's Sebastopol, which is a city project, is not our project.
Relaunch.
We launch.
Yeah, I think those were just
Not a track
examples.
project.
But, so just looking at it, looks like these all have the same 3 tabs.
Mm-hmm. Well, anyway, can we have more? So just to
Okay,
understand
so I can ask that question. Yes.
what the limitations and what the possibilities are.
Okay.
I mean, we're the arts committee. I don't know, when I taught at Dominican University, the art department was my most favorite department.
Well, and I think one of the other options now that I think about it, that is there, because the way the Climate Action Committee works is, there's sustainability and conservation measures. They're helping us keep that up to date with stuff. And there's stuff that's like, and so the building and development projects, that's kind of a branch of both the DRB and the Planning Commission. They're big private projects that are going on in town. Community projects, let's just see. So yeah, right now it's all the same thing, but they could be, I don't know how that's going to work in terms of the, can we add one here that talks about art within Sebastopol? And you would then be able to get to it from that main page on the Public Art Committee.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, good idea.
So there's a couple of ways we can do that. I don't think we're limited on that, but I'll ask if we can about those tabs just directly on your page. This obviously would be the easiest way to get to it.
So, and also I'd like to know in terms of layout. What are the limitations? What are the possibilities? Where can we put an image? Add an image to make it look more interesting.
Okay.
Someone clicking on, if they have a specific question and they're trying to find it, then they'll be going through things to try to find the answer to the question. But if they're browsing and they just see a long list, what's going to make someone in?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you. Okay. Any other questions or comments on the website? Okay, thank you. Next, hybrid or in-person meetings starting March 1st, which is our next meeting will be.
Correct. So, yeah, so the governor's emergency order for COVID ends February 28th, which does mean that we need to go back to in-person meetings or in-person and hybrid meetings. The state legislature has adopted some regulations that allow for some flexibility. There's kind of two different ways we'll be able to, so there's kind of traditional Brown Act, and then there's some modifications for the next, I think, until 2026 that the legislature has adopted. I can send you, the city clerk has been working on a staff report because the city council will be discussing at their meeting next Tuesday. And the discussion will be, do they want to do just in person or do they want to do hybrid? So that would be a combination of, still using Zoom. And basically what happens is everyone in the room becomes one of the Zoom, windows. And the meetings will be changing from City Hall down to the youth annex at the community center, which is 425 Morris Street. If you've been to the in-person city council planning commission meetings, that's in the main hall of the youth annex. We're not going to be in there. They have a side room that is a little bit more scaled, probably seats like 20 to 30 people. We would be in that room. We will have, if they go with the hybrid option, we will have the community center staff there will be basically running the cameras in between, setting everything up and doing the kind of the tech support for the meetings. So again, we don't know where that's going. We suspect that council will probably opt for the hybrid measure. But we do anticipate that we will be doing in person starting March 1st, which, yes, unfortunately, this group is the very first guinea pig on that. John, Jay, and I did a walkthrough with Mary and a couple other folks from the city a week or so ago, so we could talk about the logistics and do some testing so that we're ready to go for the hybrid option. I don't know if you want me to get into the potential for remote, or I'm just going to stop there for now. And then, but the intent is basically that for the most part, you would be in person. People would be able to participate remotely. There are, under the new state regulations, some ability to participate remotely as a committee member. You would be able to do up to 2 meetings per year under the new rules. You do need to have just cause, there's kind of 2 different reasons for that. One is, childcare, disability, something like that. For those meetings, or if you're exposed for COVID and sick and or if you're traveling, those types of things are considered just cause.
So it seems.
Sorry, go ahead.
So you're saying basically the intent is the committee's in person, but the possibility of having other people, the public, be on Zoom because that has proven to be successful. Let's say more people are participating in council meetings, for example. That's really the kind of goal or the intention.
Correct. Yeah, we've people have, and when the council has discussed whether to go to in-person meetings versus remaining on Zoom, like a year or so ago, or a year or half a year ago, I think it was a year ago actually. A lot of people from the community actually wanted them to stay on Zoom because it was a lot easier for them to participate that way. So we do know that there are a lot of community members who want to be able to participate in this way, and frankly, I do know that there's a lot of committee members who would also like to do that. But under the state regulations, you would only be able to do that 2 times per year, the remote participation. There's a little bit of logistic in that we as staff will need to track, while committee members can attend, remotely for up to 2 meetings for those just cause. And I'll send you the staff report, so you don't have to kind of write any of this down. And we will know, I'll send out a summary after next Tuesday's meeting, in terms of what direction is. You still need to have a quorum of people physically present. So only 2 members at a time, therefore, could be remote participating on a committee. The other 3 would need to be in person. And so there's a little bit of basically, I've already created a spreadsheet to make sure that we're tracking, if people are in person, remote, or just absent like Barbara is today, that is still obviously still allowed, and legitimate.
So we're just waiting for the council to decide, and then we're following their lead. There's nothing for us to say, really.
Correct. I think my understanding is that the council is likely to want all of the committees and boards, commissions to be the same, so that a member of the public doesn't have to kind of think about, oh, wait, is this an in-person meeting, or can I log on? Is this streamed? Is this not streamed? They just want consistency. I think the one thing we've asked is that for everything except for the city council, we still are able to just stream it using YouTube, because that is something that John and I can do for our design review and climate action and public art committees meetings. The other option for streaming is more complex than we can handle, and facilitate a meeting at the same time.
So are members of the public only Zoom, or they have a choice?
They would have a choice, so they could come in person, just like the old days. Yeah.
Okay.
And then if you have someone presenting, they could do it either remotely or if there's other staff, if we need to invite Dante and do something. It's the elected or appointed committee members that are restricted by the Brown Act.
And the room that you're talking about is the small room, which there are 2 small rooms in the youth annex upstairs. There's one is the one where the big room is where the city council meets, which has the wood floor and the big doors, a lot of ventilation. Then there are 2 small rooms. There's 3. One very small room to the right, and a regular small second one to the right, and one small one to the left, correct? And which one are you talking about, that the pack?
So there's it's enough to accommodate probably 35 people.
Which room?
It's not the very small room. It's if you're going into the community center, there's a side room to the right.
Yes. Is that the one?
And I think it has like a window or a door to the outside that could be, that can be opened if the weather's nice too, for ventilation.
Yeah. Okay. I taught classes in that room, so I'm very familiar.
Okay. Excellent. Cool. Yeah. It's between the kitchenette and it's right next to the kitchenette that they have.
Yes. The small space.
Yeah. I told them we can't do in the really small room.
No possibility we could do it in the larger classroom? The
main hall?
Yeah.
No, because they have other events scheduled at those times in the main rooms.
Okay.
Well,
We can't meet at the place Robert offered. We have to meet we can't meet off campus. Although
We can meet in other places. The problem, Margie, is that the technology part of it isn't mobile.
Right. So when we have had meetings like in the park.
Oh, we can still have those. It does not mean that we can't have those. Similar to the ones we have had during COVID, hey, this meeting is going to be in person at this address. We post that on the agenda, and then we just note on the agenda that this meeting will not be live streamed or recorded because it's a site meeting, basically. So we can still, we will still be able to do all of those normal things.
So we could have regular meetings at a different site.
No. We'd have
Not
regular meetings at the youth annex, and if we need a special meeting sometime, we could do that.
Okay.
Yeah,
do we
and it
have-
can be it can be one of your regular monthly meetings, but
Yeah.
we're not going to choose a different site. It will need to be at the youth annex for the most part.
Right, but we can occasionally do that,
Yes, yeah,
and that as a regular meeting. Okay.
absolutely.
Well, I'm looking forward to in-person meetings. I'll say that much.
Robert,
What?
any comment, any preference? And
Well, we don't have a lot of preference. I would have preferred that we get to keep going like we are, because saves everybody a lot of time and travel, but you know, the requirements are what they are, so we'll meet at the youth annex, where the equipment is to allow other people to log in and see the meeting, which is part of the state requirement. It's just has to be what it is.
Yeah, and like I said, I can, because the council is discussing it next Tuesday. I didn't have time to agendize this after, because your next meeting is March 1st. So I wanted to make sure I had given you the heads up now. I will send you that staff report for the council when it is published. And I will also send a summary email with anything that comes out of the council meeting that might be relevant, or kind of a change in direction if there is any.
personally, I'd just like to say, I think the COVID situation is not as healed as some of the actions are around it, and it makes, especially meeting in a small room like that.
Yeah, and I think what we can do is we can still, because that room is, we won't need to set up for a lot of public, because we don't usually have a lot of public unless it's the artist interviews and things like that. I can request that they kind of do as much social distancing for the dais kind of tables that are set up, so that there's some social distancing to that.
Thank you. Yeah.
And it's part of the what's coming down from the state, that if you're symptomatic, you could be remote, basically.
Yeah, that is the point of allowing those remote participations.
Right. Some people feel the state's moving a little fast. Some people feel it's moving too slow. So everyone, as we've seen during the pandemic, it's very individual.
Right, and you can certainly, so we will, I do know that we included in the report to council that we would, which is a little different from here, but we'll probably move to a roll call when we're doing votes, or a hand raise, as it may be, since this community is a little bit more casual. That way, if folks are wearing masks, it won't be an issue to try to figure out who said what and who voted and who didn't vote. So that's probably one of the minor changes to accommodate that.
But there's no requirement for people to wear masks.
There won't be a requirement unless there's a state or the county, Dr. Mays requires it because of an outbreak. I do think as a committee, you can certainly talk about preferences and whatnot, though. I know when I was at the community center, I was one of two people wearing a mask the whole time.
Okay. Any other questions, comments? Okay, going on. We have about 7 minutes here. Coordination with outside organizations.
I'm just asking if the committee feels we have enough time to get this started, or is there,
Hmm,
Carrie,
good
have a
question.
report that's important to be heard?
I think, I don't really have much for my planning department report that's super critical. I think the big one was the meeting thing that we just discussed as an agenda item. I do want to make sure we at least talk about, because I think March 1st, the coordination with outside organizations, and it's not even so much as organizations as it is, we have a number of private requests or ideas that are coming to this committee. And I don't know if we have a time to discuss like the process you guys want in place, so that when, you know, if you notice on the website and if you go visit it, you'll see if you're interested in an art project with the city, contact the planning department, which is fine. But then what and how do you guys want to see that introduced? So we've had like the idea of the Know Me Patrick Amiot sculpture at the park, at Libby Park. She didn't have a visual of that at the time, but because Patrick hadn't made the sculpture, but she wanted to come to the committee to see if that was, since it's, you know, city land, you guys would be okay with. We have the upcycle art, which is the through the looking glass of interconnectivity. That's what that one is. That's the kind of the new name for the upcycle art project that the Climate Action Committee is working on. The relaunch folks have from time to time, and I know they need to coordinate through me, and they keep trying to go directly to Margie, but it is a you know, they have some ideas, and people have, someone actually submitted a request for, hey, I think it'd be a good idea to, you know, put a mural on the water tower at Eleanor and Fannin. And so I guess the question is, I'd like to have some of those on the March agenda. Otherwise, people are just going to go forward with these projects without you, or they'll just get dropped and never happen when they could be really great. But maybe this is a discussion for next time, given the time we have now. You know, how do you want this agendized? What kind of information do you want to see? When do you want to see it? You know, before there's even an image, just as the concept. What's the best process that works for you all?
I think in many previous discussions, art that's appearing on public city municipal property needs to get vetted by the PAC.
Right.
And that was something that was felt to be important through a number of PAC meetings and PAC members and generations.
Right.
So I don't know, maybe we could have, you know, an appointment list, how many we want per meeting. They can get on the list. What do people think?
Well, it is challenging if we have a crowded agenda. I mean, you could put a time limit on those, but I think what you're implying, Margie, is there's a priority list of which ones we get to. And if we're unable to get to number 2, for example, on a particular agenda, that one gets postponed and the other one is acted upon.
Well, yeah, how do we want to do that? I mean, one example is I have a concern about the Paint Out Hate project, which is wonderful. I think it's a great idea, but I'm concerned about the paint. And we've had some problem with poor paint chipping. We've seen it at the what's that project
The
with
McKinley Street.
Yeah, and in other
Yeah.
streets too. Whereas when we did discuss it and did have input for the Black Lives Matter visibility project, that was better paint. And where we think paint would be appropriate and where it isn't, on the sidewalk I'm talking about. And that materials is just one thing, safety.
Perhaps when there's an outside organization that brings a project to the city and us, they're including a timeline. Perhaps they're required to include a timeline, so then the PAC can consider how soon we need to act on it.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And sometimes we've all seen people come with an idea, but it's not focused. They're coming to say, well, what do we do next? So they don't have a timeline. Which is okay, but how do we, again, what are our requirements and how do we want to do it? So it works for everybody.
Well, maybe we do need to develop a simple and as brief as possible checklist that is sent out to outside organizations. And then they have to fulfill that checklist before we agendize, a discussion of their project.
Yeah, and actually that could just be a simple checklist that's kind of a little bit of an application form in a way, that's on the Public Art Committee website that we can direct people to.
Great, yeah.
Yeah, which will help them define what they're doing, right? They come back to us with a more complete presentation.
Yes, good.
Yeah.
And then that they need that before they have an appointment.
Mhm.
Good. So then
Right.
to generate that list. Anybody interested in doing that?
Yeah, I'll work on a draft of that. And who would like me to share that with them?
I would. I mean, I'm just jotting a few things, just like, like for a planning application, what is your concept? And like someone just sent an email to Mary saying, hey, I think it'd be great to get Peacetown on the entry signs to town. And I'm going, oh my God, we don't have a sign policy yet. How's that going to work? How do we deal with that? Lars, you're smiling now, but just so you know, it's probably just going to come to DRB. And since we don't have another policy before going to council.
And then everyone will want to be on the sign. On the
Yeah, it's and that is actually probably a subcommittee that we're going to want to try to put together this year. And Jeff, yes, I'm looking at you for that one. When you're interested in signage, I think Everett Fernandez, our planning commission chair, is also interested in that in terms of the public signage component of it. So, but trying to develop some sort of policy for that kind of stuff.
Anybody else want to work with Jeff and Carrie on that list? Lars or Robert?
I mean, I could comment, or Jeff, I can review certainly and help out.
Great,
Yeah,
thank you.
so I'll brainstorm and then I'll share with Carrie and CC Lars.
Excellent.
Then bring that to our next meeting, if we can put it on the agenda for the
Yep.
next meeting. Or, yeah. Excellent. Okay, agenda for future meetings.
We'll have to address that one at a future meeting.
I will say there are some of the private requests, if they kind of have enough that they're ready to go, will need to be on next month's agenda. I bumped some of them from this agenda because of how full the agenda was. And that's part of what I do. I mean, it's part of what I do with the planning commission, and John does with the design review board too, is we don't want people to be waiting 3 months for a project and then it's just,
So can we agree as a committee that what Lars and Jeff and with Carrie come up with for a checklist can be used for 1 or 2 groups to get an appointment for the March meeting? So we have some sort of sorting.
I think that's a good idea. I mean, I'm not a voting member, but I think that's a good idea, just because we do have some pending things, and checklists can always change, but at least you'll have some information kind of written down and in your packet.
So Lars and Jeff, can you do that sooner rather than later so she can get that to them?
Yeah, I'll get some.
Jeff, it can be as simple as a bullet list and an email for
Right.
those particular folks at this point, really. I mean, just what I wrote down: timeline, project description, location, any sponsorships, any resources needed. Yeah.
I would say also material safety. I
So
think
we're-
that's
we're not-
two important things. Maintenance, like we have for the commission art, if someone wants to put something out on public property.
Yeah, and some of those may not be applicable, like the temporary installation of the upcycle art stuff.
Well,
Doesn't necessarily have a maintenance thing because it's just a
well, they
temporary.
gotta put it up, they gotta have a time.
Yeah,
and
that's
take it
logistics,
down.
but yeah.
What if something, if it falls down and who's in charge of taking care of that? Thank you. Good.
All right. Mhm.
Okay. Oh, 12:04.
And by the way, I will be out of town for the March meeting and off the grid, so. Yeah, so another prompt to get that draft out.
Thanks, Jeff.
Yeah.
I'll put that in my new attendance spreadsheet that I just made.
Okay, so, I think we're done. We didn't get the, staff report. NetCon report, but, maybe you can email us, Carrie.
Yes, and I think I had emailed you the
Yes, that's fine.
update for him.
Right.
And I think certainly working on scheduling a site visit at his studio, especially once he's in production on the sculpture, would be pretty interesting.
Yeah. And then again, the presentation to the council about the PAC is, I'll be doing that on the 7th, and mentioning all the members of the PAC. If you want to be there, that'd be great.
Right, and I anticipate, given the council schedule, they have design review board and climate action interviews starting at 4 till about 6, and then I think they're taking a break until 6:30. So the regular meeting starts at 6:30. The only items before the PAC report, which is both the kind of the update intro that Margie's going to do and approval of the site for the next call. They have appointments to those two boards beforehand, and then it's your item. So you're not too deep in the agenda. I'm guessing about 7 p.m. is when they'll get to the PAC item. They have put public comment at the end of the agenda for things that are not on the agenda to make sure that they're starting to get to their agendized items.
Okay, well, I'll just plan on being there 6:45 or something, just in case they go early.
That would be great, Margie. Thank you. Yeah.
And Carrie has said, yes, we can, during the break, show the images also that I'll be using so there'll be just images on the screen of PAC things during the break.
That's great. Thanks for doing that, Margie.
Sure. My pleasure. I think, it's really important. I'm into archiving and history, that people should have something to refer to in the future for the PAC and other things as well. Yeah.
And Margie, I'll stop the
Okay.
recording as soon as you adjourn the meeting, but if you could hang on for a sec.
Okay, sure.